Tiwena musron tropo Namo nyirenti bro Kode non makombo Oh samokno Pina fanonye Nyono komwe yansi atia bulombo Yenu mona to your wedgie, you don't know where. Plenty wetty wetly, oh mungo man, benade way. Omuna we won, omunye tu, ye moda. Oh, mona kunyo, nye potrudini anesroja, kwinyo, murawenyo, ye mu besie, nye swa mona wiwo, omunjetu, ye modeko, ye no mona.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to another edition of Let Men Talk Motivational Thursday. Good evening, good evening. Welcome to another edition of Let Men Talk Motivational Thursday. We are excited to be here. Good evening, we are excited to be here. Welcome to another edition of Let Men Talk Motivational Thursday. Tonight promises to be an important and very inspirational conversation. We have our guest in studio already. This is the 2026 edition of Let Men Talk Motivational Thursday. And we are very excited to be here. Tonight we're going to be joined by Boniface Satu. He's in the background. He will be coming up shortly. I'm so pleased to have him here tonight. Today, our conversation is going to center around public service, from public service to public impact, what Liberia and diaspora must do differently. Our guest is already seated. He's going to be coming up shortly. We are excited that you can join us. Welcome to Let Men Talk Motivational Thursday. We are happy to see you. Our guest is already in studio. He should be coming up shortly. Tonight we have none other but Boniface Satu. He's a financial management specialist. He's a public sector and developmental professional. Mr. Satu is also a community leader. Let Men Talk is pleased to have him tonight, and we should be bringing him on very shortly. Share the show. We'll be getting started shortly. We are excited to have you tonight. Share the show. We'll be bringing our guests shortly. For those of you joining us on Facebook, share the show. I have my cousin all the way from Australia joining us. And this promises to be an interesting conversation. We're going to be in conversation with Boniface Satu, a financial management specialist, public sector development professional, and community leader.
I'm the founder of Let Men Talk, whose mission is to provide a safe space for second chance for disadvantaged youth. What do I hope to achieve? I hope to be more influential. I hope to be more meaningful. I hope also to be a blessing not only to my generation, but generations yet unborn. Because I strongly believe that if you take care of God's business, He will take care of yours. Thank you.
I strongly believe that if you take care of God's business, He will take care of yours.
I'm the founder of Let Men Talk, whose mission
Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we are pleased to have in studio our guest, Mr. Boniface Satu. The countdown clock is on. In less than 5 minutes, we'll be bringing our guest on. But let's talk about who Boniface Satu is before we bring him on. Tonight on Let Men Talk, we are joined by a guest whose voice is grounded in experience, service, and substance. Our guest is a public sector professional, development practitioner, and community leader. Our guest tonight, he's a special one. He has served in senior roles within Liberia's public finance and infrastructure institutions. He's worked with international partners and donors, supported programs, and contributed to policy, governance, and institutional reforms. Beyond government, he is deeply engaged in community leadership and diaspora initiatives, advocating for responsible leadership, structured development, and solutions that goes beyond rhetoric. He speaks from lived experience, having worked inside the system and not just commenting from the outside. He brings a perspective that is shaped by education, by discipline, and service. You will note that for those of you who followed Boniface, he's constantly on Facebook and other social media writing policy statements. And from where he sits, development is not about slogans, as one of his writings. Development is not about slogans. It is about execution. It is not about blame, but responsibility. Tonight we have Boniface Satu. We are pleased to have him. And our topic is going to center around public service to public impact. Public service to public impact, and what Liberia and diaspora must do differently. what Liberia and diaspora must do differently. So please share the show. In less than 2 minutes, the countdown clock is on. We will be bringing on our guests. So please share the show. Share the show. Go to Let Men Talk and share the show. Go to Let Men Talk page, share it on your page, and we're looking to having a wonderful conversation. And for those of you who would like to chat in, the number is at the bottom of your screen. Our guest tonight, his experience, he's looking forward to the conversation. I'm also looking forward to the conversation. We have a lot of questions. We're going to question him from community, public service, family, the road fund. You go ahead and we name it. Come with your questions. Public service and governance, diaspora and national development, leadership and accountability, youth, men and nation building, community and social stability, and last but not the least, we're going to be talking to him about the road fund. A lot of conversation is happening around the road fund, so I'm hoping that you can join the conversation and be a part of this conversation. I see some folks are already joining. Some folks are already joining. In less than 1 minute, we'll be bringing our guests on. In less than 1 minute, our guests will be on. 30 seconds. We are pleased to have none other but Honorable Mr. Boniface Satu. He will be joining us in less than 20 seconds. And this is our first edition of Let Men Talk Motivational Thursday. Our conversation promises to be inspiring. I hope that you too can join the conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, without much ado, let me welcome to the stage Boniface Satu. Good evening, Mr. Satu. How are you doing?
Good evening, Mr. CEO.
It's good to have you. I'm excited to have you here tonight as the first guest of our show for 2026. This promises to be a wonderful conversation, and we've done some introductions of you, but welcome to Let Men Talk. For those who may not know you well, can you briefly tell us who you are and what has shaped your professional journey so far? I may have said some things about you, but maybe I left something out. This is your opportunity, Mr. Satu, to introduce yourself to our listening audience.
Thank you for this great opportunity, Mr. CEO. I think you said it all. You talk about my background. What I would say in short, because this is a long show, and I wouldn't want to bore you with words, but first I want to tell you thank you for giving me the opportunity to be on this great show. Looking at the theme, Let Men Talk. It comes to a lot of things, so we're here to be able to provide our own perspective. In my word, I always say men, they have two kinds of men. They have men and they have men. And now your show is about men coming on your show to be able to make presentation. In short, Mr. Satu is a public sector and development professional whose career has been shaped by working inside government institutions, international development programs, and community leadership structures. My journey has exposed me to both policy designs, real world implementation, and that combination has taught me that development is not about slogans, but about systems. Development is about discipline, and development is about execution. So based on that perspective, that's just how I see my joining, especially working with the reform program with the World Bank, working across 9 ministries, establishing a national rule fund from 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 the bottom up and building a system that today is useful in the country as a financing model for the country. So this is the kind of person you talk about. You're talking to today, that kind of wealth of experience or reservoir of both reforms and financial management exposure, both in the development world and both in the diaspora and Liberia.
Wonderful. I mean, you said it all, and we're going to dig deeper into that conversation when you speak of systems, execution, and you've been in that space before. We want our listening audience to understand that we're going to get deeper into the conversation as we move forward. When you worked in government, international development, and community leadership, how did that journey begin, and what motivated you to serve?
Basically, I've always wanted to give back. My upbringing, especially as an athlete, you know, provided me for space that I gained a lot of exposure, and I do believe that public service should be able to solve problems for the people. A public servant should be someone that is there to work for the people, to solve the people problem, to improve their livelihood, not to create excuses, but to build their livelihood. I grew up seeing how weak institutions affect ordinary people. And I wanted to be a part of that generation that strengthens systems rather than manage it and see it decline. So my motivation was that, hey, look, looking at my country, looking at the poverty rate, looking at the drain in human capital, how can I come in to provide my own contribution to help my country develop? That's what
Wonderful.
motivated public service.
That's what motivated you. We have some folks commenting already, but as we go into public service and governance, I want you to share some light from your experience inside government. What do you think most people misunderstand about public institutions work in Liberia? Now, we're going to go to Liberia. Why do people misunderstand about public institutions work in Liberia?
My belief over the 12 years that I provided a service in my public service journey, mostly I provided service to government institutions through international partners,
Okay.
especially like World Bank, USAID, WHO. I was hired by them and I provided services based on the implementations of certain interventions they wanted to take out in the country. So those were some of the things that's how I went into government. I was not hired directly by government, but by international partners. Most people think government failure is always about bad intentions. I don't think that way. In reality, it is usually about weak systems. It is usually about poor coordination and lack of accountability. Many public servants are competent and well-meaning,
Okay.
but they operate in institutions that lack structures, that lack data incentives, and performance culture. Over the years, that's some of the things that I experienced in government. Not everybody go into government with a mindset that, hey, I'm going to steal.
Okay.
But if you have a system that is weak, that accountability, implementation, coordination is lacking, then you have a problem in government. So those are some of the things that I see in government. So check and balance. That's why you have different branches of government. You have the executives and you have the legislature. The legislature should be able to have oversight in making sure that the things that the executive branch is undertaking is being overseen. That's why they are the owners of the national budget. They approve the budget. So they should
Right.
ensure that funds that are allocated in the budget should be able to reach out to where it's supposed to go. So that's how I look at government. That check and balance system, like in regular business or accounting, you say you have the operating environment and you have the control environment. So that's how I look at government. Yeah.
You know, you talk a lot about systems, implementation, and all of those things, but I want you to address specifically, why do good policies, I say good policies and development plans, so often fail at the implementation stage? Because you talk about lack of systems, you talk about check and balance, but we, you know, Liberians, we are good for, you know, talking a lot, but then sometimes we don't implement. So why do you think these good ideas, these good policies and development plans so often fail at the implementation stage?
What I would say from my own experience providing service to government and working with several government institutions, and also looking at my role as when I established the National Rule Fund, which was also a government institution. I think one of the problems we have in government institution is check and balance. One, check and balance. People being motivated to do the right things, and people being able to to ensure that the tax before them, they are that those tax are implemented according to what is being stipulated. For example, in the road sector, we have the Ministry of Public Works, and you have, I just gave you a clerical as a little example. You have the Ministry of Public Works and you have the National Road Fund. Those two entities, by right, the international communities came together to establish reforms in the road sector. But what did they do? And that reform was to establish check and balances.
Yeah.
Public Works should have been a policy arm. The National Road Fund should be the financing, because you cannot be the one managing projects. At the same time, you be the one that paying the money out to the contractors. So the international partners say, look, we need a reform in the road sector. So they have a Ministry of Public Works that have the oversight on policy. And then you have an institution called the Road Agency that manage project implementation. And you have the Road Fund that ensure that adequate financing is available to finance road and maintenance in the country.
We have a huge session that is dedicated to the road fund, because I know
I provided you with a simple check and balance. So where you find loopholes in government is that if one of those areas are not paying attention or implementing their side of the bargain, then you have lapses. You find out that things are not implemented well. So check and balances is very important, especially with GAC also as the center to make sure that things are audited and things are in place. If you have a strong oversight, many of the projects and many of the things we need to undertake in government, especially government works, that you will find out that those things will be implemented. But once you don't have those check and balances in place, nothing will work well.
Right.
Nothing will work well. Yeah.
Check and balance is very important. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are just joining us, we are in conversation with Boniface Satu, and we are talking today from public service to public impact, what Liberia and diaspora must do differently. Mr. Satu is a financial management specialist. He's a public sector and development professional. He's also a community leader. Continue to follow us and this conversation as we dig deeper. We're going to have a whole session dedicated to the road fund and those questions around that. And Mr. Satu, let's look at diaspora and national development. The diaspora is often described as Liberia's greatest untapped asset. Okay? What do you think that potential has not been fully realized? Why do you think that potential has not been fully realized? Because it is often described as Liberia's greatest untapped asset. Why up to now that potential has not been fully realized?
One of the things I think is that we do not have a coherent national framework, the diaspora and government. We treat the diaspora emotionally, not like a strategic partners. And there are no structured pathway for skills transfer, investment, and facilitation or institutional integration. You don't have those kind of things. For example, currently they have the diaspora engagement
Yeah.
working along with the government. I think it's about time to move away now from just having a conference to implementation. Implementation in a sense that it's about time the government, because if the government can leverage the diaspora adequately, right? Because the diaspora always been a bridge for Liberia. Even you look in the dark days, we complement even the national budget. The diaspora is the one that help the government. You look at or in terms of capacity, you talk about people paying school fees. For statistics purpose, in 2023, over $8 million came from the diaspora. But those funds were only for what? To pay people's school fees, to help your brothers and sisters back home? Or what if we change that into a financing instrument? A financing instrument that will
How can we do that?
So you can do that. In most recent time, I think some of the conversation that is ongoing right now is to have to structure a fund that will be used for people to invest in. And I think that's a good idea, because one of the cardinal problems that we have also in Liberia is that look at the banking institution, or look at other things that people in the United States want to do back in Liberia. The financing model is not there for people from the diaspora to tap into that. So if you create a structure or instrument, financial instrument that diaspora can invest in with a board setup, and then you also have the implementing or partners in Liberia. Well, I think you can do a lot. You can do a
So
lot.
as you talk about that, not to cut you off, but actually talking about setting up these things, are we looking at the role that government should play in creating the space and trust for diaspora investment and expertise? Or what exactly are we looking at here? Who's setting this? Is that government? Is that private institution? Who's setting this up?
So the diaspora has a role to play,
Yeah.
and the government has a role to play. I think by now the government should do a SWOT analysis, right?
Okay.
Look at how can we benefit from the diaspora. You go to Ghana, you go to other African countries, they're finding different means by which they can use the diaspora. If you look at from the onset of the war, what did the international partners do, or what did the previous president did, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf? She accessed the capital, the human capital of the diaspora to ensure that reforms and other things were able to implement a lot of reform in Liberia. What did they do? They exported or they imported human capital from America to Liberia. That's one way that you leverage the diaspora. So then you also look at the diaspora from investment purposes. Why? Okay, all these funds, there are a lot of people in the diaspora. Hey, I want to buy a home in Liberia, but do they have access to capital? It's a challenge. But what if you use synergies between the diaspora and the government? So the government always have a role to play. And I want to say thank you to President Joseph Niman Boakai, especially for putting in more effort to establish the diaspora office. So since the diaspora office has been established, I think it's about time now that they have a strategic plan to see how they can work with the government and the diaspora to see how we can change some of our remittances into investment instruments.
Okay. So you talk about the diaspora community, you talk about government. Let's look a little bit at leadership and accountability, right? Because all of these things, diaspora community must have that comfort level. Investors will have that investor confidence and everybody. So you often speak about leadership as responsibility rather than power. What does responsible leadership actually look like in practice?
Responsible leadership, one I will look at, a responsible leader is always somebody that's love to be held accountable. A responsible leader is someone that want to be transparent, or responsible leader should be somebody that has integrity. A responsible leader is a person who want to put the people first, making sure that he be able to solve the problems of the people. You bring that back to our own country, Liberia. You look at over 60-70% of our people are in poverty. I think the government is playing a part, but I think we need now to move beyond that part to see how we better the lives of our people. I think that's responsible leadership. Because if you look at the state of Liberia now, the unemployment rate, every other things that you have in Liberia, it's about time now the government sit back and say, look, how can we create opportunities for our people? You look at for the diaspora. Why do you think a lot of people, Liberians, want to move to the diaspora? Because there's lack of opportunity. So a responsible government or a responsible leader focus should be, hey, look, how can I create opportunity for my people to remain in my country and for them to live better?
And that's good because it leads me to my next question. Responsible leadership in Liberia right now, or in most cases, Liberia is a polarized society depending on your quote unquote political affiliation. If you are not in UP or you're not sedition, you don't have certain access to certain things. How can leaders balance unity with accountability, especially in a polarized society like ours, where hey, if you want to work in government or you want to work in certain places, you have to be either part of the quote unquote party system. And there are so many experts in Liberia, whether you're from CDC, ANC, that can contribute meaningfully to the forward march of the country. But some of these individuals are pretty much sidelined. So how can we balance that in a society like ours?
Yeah, good question. In my role as a national role fund manager, some of the things that you just talked about, I was affected by some of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people say, "Oh no, he's not a seditious." Some people say, "Oh, he this," But for me, it was not about partisan. It was about professionalism. It was about accountability, about doing the people's job. But what I do believe in Liberia is that we need leadership, or leadership, because when you take over the helm of power, you are not the leader of a particular group of people.
Right.
You are the leader for the Republic of Liberia. The seditians are Liberians. The Unity Party people are Liberians. All other political organs or people are part of Liberia. They are all Liberians, and they should have a fair share just by their political views. And the next problem that I see is about continuity. It's about continuity. The first thing people need to put at the back of their mind, every dollar that is spent from government coffers is the Liberian taxpayers' money.
Yeah.
Because it is the Liberian taxpayer money, if Mr. X finished this project today, he wouldn't say that, oh no, this is not my party project, so I will leave it.
We should find a lot.
Yeah, that's a waste, because that money, that was Liberian people money, that is taxpayer money. So I
Yeah.
believe government is continuity. So we have to move that political cap away now and say, look, when this administration leave, when the next administration leave, there must be continuity. And you understand? So that's how
Yes.
I see. So with all the party bickering, I don't think it's necessary. Yeah, everybody can have their size, but we are all Liberians and we all have to coexist to make Liberia better.
Wonderful. I have a question here from one of our listeners who's listening to you right now, all the way from Australia. He writes, Mr. Satu, what strategy would you implement to improve community engagement and outreach in local government agency? Community engagement and outreach in local government agency. What strategies would you implement given the polarized society we find ourselves in right now?
I think in one of my commentary from where I sit,
Yeah.
I talk about unity, and I talk about the president setting the tone. So in leadership, when everything goes wrong, it's the president. If everything goes right, the credit comes to the president. Everything is the president. The president sets the tone. So again, to his question, in terms of community engagement, depending on what side you find yourself. Do I find myself in the community space when I'm a community organizer? Or
Mhm.
do I find myself in a space of government and wanting to reach out to government? Or do I find myself in a legislature to see how I can, because the legislature represent the people.
Right.
So it depends on which side. So to his question, there are so many ways that you reach out to the community. You reach out to the community using going to the church. You use the community through sports. You reach out to the community through youth programs. You reach to the community in so many ways. When I was president for the Liberian Community Association in Washington, D.C., one way that I reached out to the community was I was able to partnership with all the different local community organizations, and I also work with the church because that's where the people go. So you have to put the program. So depending on what kind of program you have, and again, you go to the legislature. The legislature, those who represent our community, they should be able to also reach out to the community and galvanize the people and educate our people on a full. Because the better the people are informed, the better decisions that they make. So there's everybody's duty to be able to reach out to the community and bring the community together, whether through the church, whether through sports, whether through any means by which you can reach out to the community.
It's everybody's responsibility. I just returned from Liberia about 2 weeks ago, and we hear a lot about, oh, we are project, workout project, CDC project. But I think you hit the nail on the head because government is continuity. And one of the challenges we saw in Liberia, when we speak of our men, youth, and nation building, Let Men Talk focuses on men's responsibility in society. And I would like to say most of our disadvantaged youth, men, okay, this is a group that is at a disadvantage. What role do you believe educated and experienced men must play in national development today? Most of these children, I wouldn't say children anymore. They are grown men. They're on the street. Government is there, but a lot of them, and I believe it is posing a national security risk to the country with the proliferation of disadvantaged youth. Sometimes they are referred to as Zogos or Zogis, but I would like to say disadvantaged youth for context of our conversation. What can be done differently, Mr. Satu?
Yes, good question. It's in twofold. Government has a role to play, and the community has a role to play. And we as individuals have our role to play. One of the fundamental things that I've seen in our country today is that, like I was listening to the radio, somebody made a selling point. They said that we did well during the war when the war got through to rehabilitate people, to take the guns away from people, but we didn't do good in creating
Rehabilitation.
programs to transition those people from the state defining herself into the larger society. And that problem continues to haunt us today because when the disarmament process went on in Liberia, we didn't pay attention. We did it one-sided. We didn't complete the other side of the bargain to integrate these people into programs, TVET programs or other programs to create opportunity for them. And I also believe what is going on in our country now, like you talk about Zoko, our kids going to drugs. When we grew up in Liberia, we have a lot of foundational programs. You have YMCA programs, you have school programs, you have sports, so many other programs. I think it is about time individuals and other community organizations can work hard to see how they can integrate kids. But they got nothing, like in the US right now. They have even people that got psychic problems, people that have different issues, they have means to cater to them. So the government need to find financing and see how they can rehabilitate a lot of the youth that you find out there. They can still be useful citizens, but the government
Wonderful.
would need to work with them here.
Mr. Satu, there are so many questions coming in on
Mhm.
Facebook Live right now, and I think you are addressing them. I guess you preempted those questions because one of our viewers asked, "How can communities be empowered so that they are capable of playing their roles?" And you talk about government intervention, financing, making capital funds available. So you are definitely addressing it. But another listener here is saying, how do you address unemployment considering 65% of our population is under 25? I think that correlates with the previous thing as you talk about government intervention. But if there's any light you'd like to share before we transition
Okay,
to,
yeah, that's a good question. Again, I will go back to one of my
and I
commentary.
know Judge was asking this question.
Yeah, it go back to one of my commentary. You see, the unemployment rate in our country is structural. It's structural in a sense that our government is not focusing on creating opportunities. But this is the point. The government is making all of the allocations to help people to get employed. But the missing link here is that, for example, we just read in the current budget, you have the total procurement spending for government is almost about 467 million for goods and services. And out of that amount, you have 25% of that amount, which is almost 116 million, set aside. 25% of that amount is for small Liberian businesses. And we have a law in Liberia for small businesses that 25% should go to local Liberian businesses, small businesses, the people that got mechanic shop, the people that do other things. Cumulatively, when I did the analysis the other day between 2022, 2023 to 2024, if that 25% and we were enforcing the 25% law for small businesses, if we have been close to $1 billion that we are going to the community and that we have created a job for small businesses. In America today, 60% of small businesses that they create jobs in America. And we have the same law in Liberia, but we lack enforcement. I see now that Senator Conan is talking about enforcement. If only President Boyka can go back in the finance ministry and start enforcing that 25%. For example, goods and services that we need to procure. If that start going to Liberian businesses, you will start creating jobs and you will reduce some of the unemployment. So there are so many other strategies that you can use to curb the unemployment rate. But government need to start paying attention. We have all of the laws, especially the 25% for small businesses. It's time to start implementing and enforcing those laws. That will also help the job creation in our country. Because if you look at 80% of the workforce in Liberia, it's almost people that are underemployed.
Right, in the informal sector. So
in the informal sector. So how can you move those people into the formal sector? If you bring them into the formal sector, you know what happens? You create more tax revenue for government also, and you create more jobs, and while the money circulates, and people's livelihood become to improve. So it is government role now to see in the 467 million that is targeted for procurement, 25% enforcement should start going to local Liberian businesses.
But you see, let me challenge you also. I mean, you talk about that. You know, if the masses are empowered, they will not be accepting bag of rice during elections. You talk about enforcement and all of those things. If 25% of the procurement expenses should be allocated towards Liberian businesses, and there is not an enforcement, nobody knows how much of that money is going to Liberian owned businesses for empowerment, because that's a little over $100 million. We have a $1.2 billion budget, Mr. Satu, and most of that money goes to recurring expenses. And in order for us to make headways, to do capital investments and other things, money has to come from somewhere. A larger portion of that money goes to the upper echelon of our society, meaning the legislature, the judiciary, and the executive. How do you think that budget can be looked at differently so that it actually benefits the people instead of just because we have 103 legislators, but 103 people, the budget alone is crazy. And so when you look at the budget, you talk about recurring expenses, you talk about capital investment, not a whole lot left for other improvement, like you talk about the disadvantaged youth. If we don't have enough money for disadvantaged youth, obviously there's not going to be movement. If you don't have enough money for the University of Liberia, if you put small money into the budget for University of Liberia, the the school is going to remain as it is instead of building. You've seen schools around here, how they look. And when I came back from Liberia, I'm looking at my University of Liberia, I said, there is no way the nation center of learning should look like this. How can you look at budget and talk about it in another way relative to the enforcement we are talking about and reallocation of our resources?
Yeah, you see, over time, we realized that our budget is always the same budget year in, year out, year in, year out. Over less than 2% of Liberians are working for government directly on government payroll. There are about 70,000 or so work on government payroll. The rest of the other people, they look up to the private sector to gain their own employment. That's what I talk about, the 25%. You talk about the goods and services. And majority of the money that is spent from the budget, approximately 70% is spent by the executive branch of government. If you look at the legislature, we talk about the legislature, even though we look at the budget to be big, but their total expenditure, percent of that will be less, almost about 5% of the national budget for the legislature. But majority of the other funds is recovering and administrative and operating. And you really do not have a lot of window for investment, for infrastructure. I will give you an example. In the in President Weah's government, for infrastructure like roads, the only source of funding then for road financing was the road fund. And the road fund amount was 25 million per annum. And that same funds was used for maintenance. That same fund was used for rehabilitation, new road construction, counterpart funding, and that fund was not enough to finance all of those activities. That's why you see today our roads are deteriorating and not enough fund for maintenance. So government need to sit back and do some realignment with the national budget. Either you decide now to start scaling back, like some institutions in Liberia, you really don't need them. Why you can merge some of those institutions and take those resources to add it back into your PSIP to carry out more activities that will generate the private sector, that will generate jobs, and that will help LEC, that will go to local governance. You see, so and one of the things that I think the country need now is the master development plan for Liberia. If we have a master development plan for Liberia that is legislated for 10 to 15 years, the first thing you curb, the first thing you encourage continuity. So which means the man in Grand Bassa County will know that every year we have a plan. Even international partners will be able to plan against that. Everybody will be able to plan because you have a plan that go over a lifespan for over 10, 15 years. You come to America, they do the same thing. So we need to restructure and realign our national budget and reduce some of those recurring expenses and see how we put in more money for investment, like in infrastructure, like roads, like taking care of our electricity. So the government and the Minister of Finance now need to sit back and see how we can realign the national budget so we can see more development in our country.
We need to realign the national budget. I want to say thank you again. Again, for those of you who are just joining us, we are in conversation with Boniface Satu. We're talking about public service, from public service to public impact, what Liberia and diaspora must do differently. Mr. Satu is a financial management specialist. He's a public sector and development professional, and he's also a community leader. Mr. Satu, as we continue our conversation, I want us to now talk about the road fund debate. You have been the former chief executive officer of the National Road Fund of Liberia. You recently wrote a new policy white paper that could change how Liberia finances and maintains its roads. The paper is entitled Financing Liberia's Road Infrastructure from Budget Dependency to a Sustainable National Road Economy. And it was prepared for the National Infrastructure Conference in Ganta City. You're right, this is not a political paper, it is a system paper. You know, why do we keep rebuilding the same roads over and over? You see, the white paper argues that Liberia crisis is not about lack of ideas or constructions. It is about lack of financing, governance, and discipline. Until we can fix the system, we keep building the same road. So most of us think Liberia's road problem is about lack of money or too much rain. But your paper argues different. So what should policy, the question now, what should policymakers, why should policymakers pay attention to that piece of document you wrote?
Good,
Why should
good,
they
good.
pay attention?
When I heard about the infrastructure conference, I thought first it's a good idea. The Ministry of Public Works came out with that program because it brings together stakeholders, uh, people with professional background to see how we can have a dialogue or national conversation or how we look at our role situation in Liberia. I would say our Liberia has a road crisis.
Okay.
Liberia has a road crisis because our road sector, if you look at our road sector, we have 11,430 approximately road network in Liberia. And according to the World Bank report, before we came in 2026, the Sparta report from the World Bank, they said over 60% of our road were in either bad or worse condition.
Over
And less
60%.
than 10, yes, over 60% of our roads were either in bad or worse condition. And less than 10% in 2016 were paved. Today, I think the bar has been moved from that. And historically, most of our roads are being financed by what? Donor partners, the
Yeah.
African Development Bank, the World Bank. Because why? We don't have a structured financing mechanism to be able to finance road. So you can have, I always say, you can have all the blueprint, all the architectural work for a road or for a building construction. But if you do not have the finance, you will never build that, you will never build that house or you will never build nothing. So to me, finance is the key driver. And for Liberia to move from that stage, we need to have a financing model that is structured, that is sustainable, that can go from year to year. So that one of the reasons that motivated me to write this white paper, to identify first, to provide the paper provide a historical perspective of the road sector. It also has a prudent statement of the road sector. Then I also look at evidence base that can support my point that we need to set up a financing model for the country. So that's why the paper is about how we can set up a system, a financing system that will be able to finance our road and provide adequate financing year after year.
So
That is the purpose of the paper.
you talk about financing model. You and I, we are bankers. We understand in order for the lender to extend credit, you must have a good credit profile. And when we
Correct.
look at Liberia's GDP, its ability to repay is there. Sometimes we have struggles. We try to figure out which debt to pay and when. All of those things, lenders or the donor partners will have to look at the credit profile of the country before before credit can be extended to the country. You talk about a lot of financing model. At the same time, they want to see what we are doing with our own proceeds as well, our own money. Because if we don't invest heavily into road network, it does not create the space that is needed, right, for commerce. Okay. So why do you think is the road fund so important? Why is the road fund so important?
The road fund is a financing mechanism that was set up to finance our road. It is a bankable instrument. When leveraged adequately, you can finance all of your roads. The original objective of that institution, you see, came from the backdrop of the international partners for one reason. Over the years, we do not maintain our rules. We rely only on budget appropriation to finance our roads, to maintain our roads. And that is unsustainable, especially for the fact that you have competing national priorities. People will say, why would you take the money to the hospital for education? You want to put in roads. People are dying here. Why can't you take it to this other part or fix the electricity grill in the country? You want to put it in roads. So the financing and maintaining of road always have a competing priorities. So the only way out of that mechanism is to set up a structural financing model, which we have done. One part of it is with the National Road Fund. So in most African countries, you find out that they have something called first generation fund. They have something called second generation fund. Second generation fund mainly is a fully autonomous and empowered institution that have the ability to negotiate, that have the ability to solicit financing, and have the ability to be able to finance your roads. So that is the role of the National Road Fund. So today, if you look at the road fund is there. It also has some political interference. The road fund is not guaranteed. I will tell you one thing. If you look at the PPP, the Ganta to Tapeta Road, the World Bank asked the road fund, they leveraged the road fund. That's how it should have been close to 100 million. But the road fund was leveraged and guaranteed by the World Bank. Every year we should have paid $8 million for that. But because we had regular revenue that will come, core revenue that is coming in from fuel levy. Road fund funds is generated from fuel levy. Every 25 cents on a gallon, that's what we generate. And cumulatively, annually, if you annualize that, that is 25 million. However, we also have other road user charges that if you institute now, you can move your revenue from 25 million to 50 million per annum. And secondly, to 50 million. So then the next thing you say, how will investor trust? Even you bring the investor into a PPP model, how would they trust it? One is to ring fence the revenue that you have. If you ring fence the road fund money into an escrow account, and even if it flow through the general revenue account in Ministry of Public Finance, you can move it straight into the road fund. That way people trust and say, oh, any partners who want to deal with you, they show that you will be able to pay back their money. So we need to structure the road fund, strengthen it, and have some reform to the road fund for us to be able to have an institution that you can leverage as a cash collateral to finance and maintain all your roads. That's what the paper is.
And now what the paper hope to address, but I did hear you say most of the funds on the road fund is going through the consolidated account.
Yes.
When it goes there, government decides, oh, we need to build hospital, we need to do this. We're not getting it. Do you seek autonomy of the road fund so that that money can just come straight to you? What do you see?
Yeah, we did all of those. If in fact, when I talk about the National Road Fund, I talk about the National Road Fund under a strategic framework. The strategic framework first was to establish the operating and the control environment and make sure that the institutions stand on its own. That's why you see we had the first audit that a lot of people talk about, because one of the conditional precedent for Millennium Challenge and the World Bank for us to have matching fund is that the road fund needed to be regularly audited. And because when an institution is audited, it shows transparency and accountability. Investors will want to deal with you. That was one factor. So if you look at the National Road Fund from that perspective, definitely you will realize that institution, if it is leveraged adequately, you will be able to finance most of your roads.
So if Liberia fixes only one thing in the road sector, what would it be and why?
The one thing that Liberia can fix, if they set up a systematic financing model for financing their road, instead of depending on budget, instead of depending on budget allocation, instead of depending on donor-funded funds. They need a system that year to year that will have adequate financing to first maintain the roads and to start building roads and to be able to come up with road rehabilitation and moving through the country. So if I will fix one thing, I will fix the financial management system of the National Road Fund. It is not broken. Let's be clear. It is not broken, where it needs to be strengthened. It needs to have the necessary system in place that you will have predictable funds. Because one of the problems that we have in road, we talk about construction. Most of our roads break down because at times we don't have adequate funding. At times you don't have adequate funding. You don't have sufficient money to pay for maintenance. Contractors can play against or road work. There's no sufficient fund. If you look at currently what I just learned, currently you do not have all of the funds to fix all of your road. One of the things we did when I was part of the National Road Fund was that I created a relationship with local banks. Whenever we have gaps in capital, what I did, I use bridge financing, meaning that if we had to pay for a road for $10 million and to contractors and we didn't have sufficient money, we go to the bank and use leverage the road fund on a cash collateral and say, look, when we have our money, we'll be able to pay. So if the institution is credible, if the institution if the institution have all of the truth, all of the transparency matter and everything attached to it, I don't think we struggle to finance our road. I don't think we struggle to have maintenance, because once you have sufficient money, you can always build any roads. There's no way you can build a road even if you have all of the designs of the road, you have all of the structure. If you don't have money to build a road, you will never build it, will just be on the shelf. So to me, the key here is to strengthen the road fund, put all of the policy safeguards in place, and one that is structured. Right now, you go to Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone implemented all of their suddenly they ring fence their road fund money. So right now, anybody can do business with them because those are requirements. Yeah.
That's really good. And ladies and gentlemen, for those of you just joining us, we are winding down our discussion with Mr. Boniface Satu. We're talking about public service. We're talking tonight about from public service to public impact and what Liberia and diaspora must do differently. We've addressed issues of the road fund. And as we continue to have our discussion, we should be ending shortly. But there's one or two more questions that hopefully we can address before we close. For some reason, we are getting signal that Facebook is not on live. So we got to figure what is going on. Nevertheless, we will continue and hopefully it will self-resolve. I don't know why it's still not going, but let's continue as we start. So at this time, if you could change one thing about how Liberia approaches development, what would that be and why?
If I will change one thing, how we take care of development in Liberia, I addressed that. I did a serious session on that, and I thought to look at that. Just a second.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I did a research and I thought that will be able to help our people. One of the things that I think we need to help, one of the things that I think we really need to focus on when it comes to development in Liberia will be, because most of the time we at times we're not short of money. It is not an issue of money. One of the issues, we have all of the best players. We have the arrest agenda. We have had the pro-poor agenda. We have different kinds of developmental plans, but those plans will never be implemented if you do not have the adequate capacity for implementation and measurement of your development plan. So we need to see how we can measure our development. For example, every year when the budget passes, right, there must be a budget performance report to see if the money that was spent actually affecting the people's lives, or whether we're really achieving what we plan in the budget. But you cannot develop budget year to year and you don't come back to the people to tell us how that budget performed. So we now the citizens we need to start asking government to or the Ministry of Finance or the legislature to come back to us to give us a budget performance, to tell us how our budget is performing. And then we also need to focus on accountability. The GSC, how the funds that are being spent is accounted for. Then we also need to look at transparency, how those funds are being transparent enough to meet the targeted people. So if I would change one, those are the pillars I think can change the trajectory of our country when it comes to development. Because every year we put in budget over years, you find that, for example, let's take 3 years. Our budget was 700 million, 800 million, now it's 1.2 billion. You're talking about more than $2 to $3 billion in our economy. So what can you show for it? How can you measure that? How many jobs you have created from that? How many new infrastructure you have put in place? But year after year, you cannot measure none of those developmental agenda. When you come to national, when you come, like for example, the SONA. Now we expect our president to tell us, hey, in 2024 when I took over, in 2025 when I took over, this is the amount of job that I've created. This is the amount of road that I have built, and that should be measurable. We do not have those kind of things. You don't see it in the people's lives. You don't see everything in the people's lives. You go back to the country, our people are still struggling because we have a missing link. We have all of the laws, but we do not even enforce all of the laws that will be able to impact our people. Why do we have capital flight in our country? The same way with the 25%. Majority of that money, where does it go? It go right back to the foreigners that do the business here. And once they have the money, they don't bring the money back. They don't reinvest that money into our country. That money go out of our country. Every year, all of the $1 billion go out of the country. They don't reinvest that money to create jobs and create other opportunity. So if I would change one thing, it would be accountability. It would be good human capital, and it would be that the government would demand the government to show us performance report of the national budget year to year.
Thank you so much. We've been in conversation with Boniface Satu. It has been a wonderful conversation. We're looking forward to bringing you back again. I think we need to do this again and again. This is our first rodeo. We're looking forward to that. We've been having, towards the end of our podcast, we've been having some challenges with Facebook. I don't know why, but we are still on here. But as we leave here tonight, one final parting comments. We say thank you for coming. From where you sit, one of your writings, you said history will not judge this administration by the elegance of its agenda or the sincerity of its intention. I want to say that again. History would not judge this administration by the elegance of its agenda or the sincerity of its intentions. It would judge it by results, by whether the promise of rescue translated into opportunity, stability into growth, and unity into shared progress. As you leave us tonight, what is your final message to Liberians at home and abroad about the collective responsibilities going forward?
Good question. And again, thank you for the show. I think, like you said rightly, we will be able to do this from time to time to see how we can share our own perspective about Liberia. One of the things, I go back to the president, and I want to call on the president this time and at this hour. There is no country that is built in the absence of unity. We will all have diverse views. Everybody has their political views, but the president is the president for the Republic of Liberia. So he came on the mantle of what? Rescue. Yeah. And my thought and what I expect is that rescue to see it in the people, to see the lives of the people, to see that jobs has been created, to see that every day we do not have a Christmas level electricity, to see that we'll be able to have water, to see that we'll be able to have better roads. But all that is done from the president. The tune the president will set, that would be the tune that all of his lieutenants would play to. So if the president is sure and set the tune for accountability, set the tune for transparency, and set the tune for unity, you can be CDC, You can be Unity Party, any other party is president for the Republic of Liberia. And for us to move forward, I expect that the president tie his sona to unity and the economy. Because with the economy, it will go when the people can feel they can feel the impact of the national budget in their lives. I think the people will be happy. So what I want to see and I expect from the president is to make sure to bring our people together. We disagree to agree, but let's be united. Let the rhetoric tone down in the country, and let's see how we can work on the agenda of the economy so our people's lives can be better. That is what I see. Because if the people's lives is not better, it also poses insecurity for the other people that already have. So it is the president's duty because he came on the mantle of rescue, and I think let the people feel the rescue in their lives.
Wonderful. It's been a wonderful time. And I think after the president's message on Monday, we're going to find time again to discuss it. I'm looking forward to this conversation with you again. We hope that you will be a regular on Let Men Talk podcast. And we're looking forward to this, Mr. Satu. You provided a lot of insight today. We talk on a wide range of things from diaspora engagement to road fund to accountability to bring to unity and all of those different facets of our economy, even addressing the less fortunate, the youth in our society, and all of those things. I think when we work together collectively, Liberia can be a better place. On behalf of Let Men Talk, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. I want to thank you, and we'll definitely be in contact again. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll leave you with this song as our theme song. Enjoy the rest of your evening. We're looking forward to our partnership again and again. So thank you so much, Mr. Satu.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
I saw on Facebook.
Yeah.